Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how I deploy a CloudFormation stack to different environments. So in case you haven't realized, in AWS, whenever we need to deploy a CloudFormation stack, we need to specify the account ID and also the AWS region where we're going to have that CloudFormation stack. So for example, if we go to AWS console, this account ID 74775021964 uh, must be combined with an AWS region, like this list of regions. So for this example, I'm choosing US West 2, Oregon, before you can have a CloudFormation stack. So once you deploy that combination of AWS account ID and AWS region, then you can deploy your stack. If you want to deploy not the same stack to another region, then you need to specify that region, and then it will be listed in the stacks of that region. Same if you specify different account ID. So this other tab is connected to a different account 641253862632, and you can have different set of stacks in different regions. Yeah, at the moment, there are no CloudFormation stacks in the regions in both Oregon and Sydney for this account, the second account, and also for the first account. So I'm going to deploy something to all these four accounts. Now, if we go back to our Visual Studio Code, I have prepared a CloudFormation template in this file vpc-network YAML, and then the config for it is prepared in this infra VPC network YAML. And what people usually do is just use one config file to deploy to one environment. But in cases where we need to deploy to different environments, either different regions or different account IDs, then what people usually do is just copy this file to different directories where the directory will represent either the account AWS account or AWS region, or combination both of account and region. So in example, since we're going to deploy that config to 4 environments, which is 2 different accounts and 2 different regions. So to simulate that, what I did was created 4 directories that represent those environments: account 1 Oregon, account 1 Sydney, account 2 Oregon, and then account 2 Sydney. So all these files have been copied to those directories, and then the CIDR block has been defined in these parameters, VPC CIDR block. Yeah. So in Oregon, in account 1 Oregon, it will have 10.255.240.0/21. Account 1 Sydney will have 127.240. Account 2 Oregon will have 10.255.40.0/21. Account 2 Sydney will have 10.127.40.0/21. This is acceptable, but eventually you will need to add more config in your Sceptre config directory. Yeah, so you will have more files under account 1 Oregon, account 1 Sydney, like NAT gateway, EC2 instances, SSM parameters store, or your applications, whatever it is that will be related, will be linked to your VPC. And from my experience, things will get out of hand. Things will be inconsistent from one stack to another if you keep adding more config files like that. So my personal approach to deploy these CloudFormation stacks to different environments is having one config, but then refactor the values, the different values from one stack to another by taking them out from the config and then define them in separate variable files. Yeah. So in this case, instead of creating 4 directories, I'm creating 4 different variable files like this: account 1 Oregon, account 1 Sydney, account 2 Oregon, and then account 2 Sydney. So the the VPC starter block like this, this will be used in this infra in this variable. Yeah, and then also in order to switch to those different accounts in different region, the different region was selected by defining the AWS region variable in the config YAML in this one. So this will use the variable called AWS region in the variable file like that. So Oregon is US West 2, Sydney is AP Southeast 2, this is Oregon again, and this is Sydney again. And then to switch to different account, I'm using the variable called Sceptre row. So the documentation about this is in this one, yeah, Sceptre row. So it needs to have a full path to the IAM role ARN that will have the permission to deploy this CloudFormation stack and create the resources in the template. So in this case, we have 4 different environments, but just 2 different accounts. Yeah, the full ARN will look like this, and we're going to supply the AWS account ID in this one from the variable file like that. So account 1 will have the same account ID like that. Account 2 will have that account ID. Yeah, and they all will use the same role name. So there exists this role name in account 2, and this role name also exists in account 1. I have prepared that previously. So with these variables prepared, I can use exactly the same config file to be deployed to those 4 environments. Now let's do that. But before we actually deploy that, I'm going to show you what will happen if we don't load that variable file when we execute Sceptre launch. So we're going to issue the command Sceptre launch -y infra. We don't need to specify the full path to this 50 network YAML because Sceptre will try to deploy everything under that directory. This will fail because it cannot resolve the variable into values. So it was expecting AWS account ID, which is defined in here. So let's load that file by specifying file. So remember, the path to this is the path starts from the directory under Sceptre. So this one is variables like that, / and then the file. Yeah. So that will deploy the stack to account 1 Oregon. I'm going to prepare the same command for account 1 Sydney, and then sorry, this one, yeah, account 1 Sydney. Okay, the third shell will be account 2 Oregon, and the fourth shell will be account 2 Sydney. Right, now let's double oh yeah, we have checked the stacks in those environments. Now we're going to deploy them at almost the same time. So this is account 1 Oregon. Yeah, create in progress. Let's go to account 1 Sydney. Create in progress. Account 2 Oregon. Create in progress. Account 2 Sydney. Create in progress. Okay, now let's go back to the AWS console. This is account 1. Let's go to Oregon. It is being created with that name, Sceptre tutorial infra VPC network. If we go to Sydney, it should be also create in progress state. Yeah, now we go to second account. This is Oregon, it is being created. If we go to Sydney, it's also being created. Okay, now let's go back to account 1. Yeah, create complete. That means we can see the VPC in Oregon. It should have 10.255.240/21, yeah. And then if we go to Sydney, it should have 10.127.240/21. Yes, so that's the first account in both Oregon and Sydney. And then in the second account, this should be completed by now. Okay, it is completed. That's Sydney. Let's go to Oregon first. They should have 10.255. What is it? 40. Yeah, .0/21. And the one in Sydney should have 10.127.40.0/21. Yep, as expected. So that's how you can simplify your code to make sure that the deployment will be consistent across different accounts by refactoring the variables into the variable file, and also by specifying the Sceptre role to lock your deployment by assuming different role right before Sceptre deploys the CloudFormation stack. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.